have come back from losing a life. And that's the crux of this, is it's a double-edged sword. I certainly couldn't fault him for any of it based on how things had transpired. He was really stuck between a rock and a hard place. Really was.
Shit happens, you know, when you